As we saw in the busy scenes from the 1920s, Railway Square was a major city terminus. We'll take a trip from Railway Square to Anzac Parade Junction. This inbound tram is approaching Railway Square in Pitt Street. Arriving at the terminal loop, the driver resets the destination sign for Maroubra Beach. And the conductor makes a nimble exit. An outbound tram swings from the terminal loop into Railway Square. And approaches the waiting shed in the centre of the square. Leaving Railway Square, trams for the eastern suburbs ran down Pitt Street and into Eddy Avenue. Then, as now, the handsome colonnaded facade of Central Station provided the backdrop to Eddy Avenue, which had a third track for special workings such as racecourse and show traffic. At the eastern end of Eddy Avenue, trams passed beneath the railway tracks and beneath the bridge which carried trams, leaving the colonnade for Circular Quay. A signal box controlled the junctions leading into Elizabeth Street. This is the view from the signal box of trams to and from southeastern suburbs. Trams for Bondi and Bronte turned north into Elizabeth Street, which they followed as far as Liverpool Street. An inbound tram to the railway from Bondi. Inbound and outbound trams in Randall Street on tracks built when Chalmers Street alongside Central Railway was closed for construction of the eastern suburbs' underground railway platforms. Inbound in Chalmers Street nearing Randall Street. Chalmers Street approaching Cleveland Street. Cleveland Street near Dowling Street. Anzac Parade Junction with passengers boarding a tram for the railway. An outbound tram at Anzac Parade Junction joining the route from Circular Quay. The trams which served the southeastern lines were housed at Dowling Street Depot on the corner of Dowling Street and Dacey Avenue. The West Kensington line passed this depot, but there was also a network of connecting lines in Waterloo and Redfern for depot and racecourse workings. Bound from the depot for the Botany line, this tram is in Phillip Street, Waterloo. And in Elizabeth Street on part of the Rosebery line. Dowling Street Depot was the largest tram depot in Australia. It had 27 tracks, and in its heyday it housed more than 340 trams. It was the last depot to remain in use in Sydney, but by the time these pictures were taken, fewer than 100 trams were in service, all of the corridor type. Turning into Dacey Avenue to take up running on the La Perouse or Coogee line. shuttle service carried crews to and from Kensington Junction. A tram on this service, known as the Limerick, swings onto the third track on the western side of Anzac Parade and is briefly delayed by a dewirement. Trams on the West Kensington line in Dowling Street alongside the depot, visible at right. A tour tram on the West Kensington line in Todman Avenue. Inbound in the same street. The Daceyville line was operated as a branch from the Botany line, running along Gardeners Road to the Daceyville terminus at Anzac Parade. Passengers board an inbound tram at Daceyville in the morning peak hour. And it sets off for the city. Having completed a trip on the Daceyville line, this tram is turning into Anzac Parade, bound for Dowling Street Depot. A flat car, known as a ballast motor, turns onto the Daceyville line from Anzac Parade and heads along Gardeners Road towards Rosebery sand sidings, alongside Rosebery Park Racecourse. A tram from Daceyville to the city passes the racecourse. Like trains, trams use sand to aid their grip on wet rails, and the sand for trams was collected from these sand hills, loaded into bags and conveyed by ballast motors such as this to depots around the network. Having collected its load, the tram heads back towards Waverley or Dowling Street Depot. The line to Botany and Matraville ran from Redfern south through industrial suburbs and close to the shore of Botany Bay. Chalmers Street at Cleveland Street. Redfern Street, Redfern. Regent Street inbound at the Redfern Street corner. The outbound tram approaching is one of the last 5 of the R class, which were converted during construction to the R1 design. Note the window spacing. The inbound tram turns into Redfern Street. Botany Road, near the corner of Burke Street. Beaconsfield. Near Park Road, a dedicated tramway employee oils a check rail. Still in Botany Road, we are in Banks Meadow. turning into Beecham Road and the end of double track. Perry Street, at the end of which most trams terminated at this hotel at Bunnerong Road. A few trips continued to Military Road. This single frame is the only available view showing the abandoned line to La Perouse, curving left from the end of the track at Matraville. An inbound tram near the end of the line in Bunnerong Road near Hassel Street. Inbound in Perry Street at the Bunnerong Road corner. The Matraville line had one of only two level crossings in Sydney between a railway and a tram line, in Beecham Road. The other one was on the Balmain line in Rozelle. In 1952, new terminal tracks were laid into Chelmsford Avenue off Botany Road, and the line was cut back to this point. Married cars were not allowed to stop here. A tram arrives at the Chelmsford Avenue terminus. A lady walks toward a connecting bus for Matraville, but our cameraman makes her vanish before the bus moves off.
A tram leaves the Chelmsford Avenue terminus for the city. Here are some additional scenes on the Botany line filmed separately. First, we'll see trams on the secondary route to Botany via Railway Square, Regent Street. An inbound tram turns into Cleveland Street. Inbound in Regent Street, Redfern. Botany Road, Redfern, with an amazing lack of traffic. The corner of Henderson Road, where the line to Alexandria turned right. The corner of Burke Street with its single track in the foreground. The corner of Gardeners Road. Inbound and outbound trams in Mascot. Underneath the goods railway. And some colourful taxis.
From Dowling Street Depot, a single track connecting line led to the Rosebery and Botany lines. The conductor collects the staff at Dowling Street. The depot can be seen in the background as the tram turns into O'Day Avenue. In tramway days, the connection from Joynton Avenue to Burke Street was on unpaved track, with puddles evident after rain. After the tram line closed, O'Day Avenue was extended along the tramway alignment. The off-centre placement of the single track in Burke Street meant that trams had to run against the flow of traffic in one direction. Burke Street at Botany Road, with trams heading back to Dowling Street at the end of the afternoon peak hour. O'Day Avenue near Dowling Street. Alexandria was served by a branch from the Botany line along Henderson and Mitchell Roads. Crew change ends at the terminus at the corner of Mitchell Road and the Princess Highway, St Peters, before returning to the city. The Alexandria line connected with the Cooks River line at this spot. From Rockdale Station, an isolated line ran down Bay Street to Brighton-le-Sands. On the last day of operation in 1949, the tram heads along the Grand Parade at Brighton-le-Sands, bound for Rockdale. Northbound in Bay Street. Passing another tram at Far Street Loop. Passing the junction for the spur line to the depot. Rockdale Terminus. The climb from Rockdale in Bay Street. We saw trolley buses at Cogra a few minutes ago. Sydney's first trolley bus route, from the city to Potts Point, had opened in 1934. These views are in Park Street. All the trolley buses eventually found their way to the Cogra system. The first two were single deck. This is number 1. Numbers 3, 4 and 5 were double-deckers with 2 axles. Whilst the rest of the fleet, numbering 21 vehicles, had twin axles at the rear. This trolley bus is leaving Rockdale. The front seat on the top deck provided a good view. We are in Rocky Point Road, passing the depot at Ritchie Street. Sanssouci Terminus, with the bitumen surface in the centre of the road showing the location of the former steam tram tracks. Today, Captain Cook Bridge is on the right. Cogra Station. The trolley buses mostly followed the former steam tram routes with an extension northwards to Rockdale. A trolley bus shows a good turn of speed along the Princess Highway.